Once a well-known figure in hip-hop, Jim Jones is now at the center of a developing scandal that might permanently ruin his career. The industry has been rocked by the recent dramatic airport brawl, and the gruesome footage that has emerged has left both fans and insiders in disbelief. A straightforward travel day soon descended into chaos, resulting in a fight so heated that security had to intervene. Rumors of legal issues are already becoming more prevalent, and according to certain rumors, a lawsuit may soon be filed. Viral videos of the incident have amassed millions of views in a matter of hours, setting social media on fire. What actually happened is what everyone wants to know. Was Jim Jones the victim or the aggressor? And why do industry insiders believe that this could be the last nail in his career coffin? Major companies and businesses are reportedly already retreating out of fear of the fallout from this public meltdown, according to several sources. Close colleagues are frantically trying to contain the damage in the interim, but is it too late? This isn't just another rapper embroiled in trouble. The entire industry is talking about this situation, which could endanger his career. And when more startling information comes to light, the question still stands. Will Jim Jones make it through this, or is this really the end of the road? Hold on tight, because you won't be able to speak after what we're about to tell. Before the airport's tension eventually burst into chaos, it had been building for some time. According to witnesses, Jim Jones arrived at the terminal with a strained, almost restless energy in place of his typical swagger. He had been observed pacing close to the check-in desk while engaged in heated phone conversations. A few admirers acknowledged him and contemplated going up for a quick selfie, but his manner cautioned them against it. His hand gripped his phone so hard that his knuckles turned white, and his voice sounded harsh. Nobody could have foreseen the next course of events. Everything appeared to be routine at first, just another day at the airport. Then, however, there was a dispute. Jim Jones was unhappy about a seating issue, according to some sources, but others maintained that the matter was far more personal. Another passenger, a man wearing a dark hoodie, started making hostile gestures at Jim. Jim initially muttered something under his breath, as if to dismiss him. The other man, however, was not going to back down. As their screams became louder, other travelers in the vicinity noticed and promptly took out their phones to record. Then it came, the turning point in everything. According to witnesses, the man pointed a finger in Jim's face after approaching him too closely. Jim quickly pushed the man's hand away, and the situation quickly became heated. After the man shoved Jim back in retaliation, the altercation quickly descended into a full-fledged brawl. Passengers gasped, luggage flipped over, and fists began to fly as security alarms sounded in the background. It happened so fast. 1 minute, they were arguing, and the next, Jim just swung. A young woman who had been watching from a distance later told reporters. It was insane. Everyone was yelling. In the now viral video, Jim is seen delivering a crushing right hook that knocked the man backward. Jim didn't stop there either. Leaping forward, he grabbed the man's shirt and pulled him to the ground. People retreated out of fear of being caught in the crossfire, and screams rang out. By the time airport security arrived and struggled to separate them, the harm had already been done. Evidently hurt, the man gripped his face while blood trickled down his white t-shirt. While some bystanders stood motionless, stunned by what they had just seen, others yelled for someone to contact the police. Members of his entourage pulled Jim back, who was panting heavily, but his eyes were still filled with hatred. It was obvious that this was no ordinary altercation. Behind it was something more profound. Like wildfire, the videos went viral. Social media was inundated with videos, posts, and contentious conversations about the brawl in a matter of minutes. Jim Jones is out here throwing hands like he's still in the streets. A one tweet stated, "Bro's career is done after this. Lawsuit incoming." Another person wrote on social media, including slow-motion video of the punch. Fans were divided on the internet, with some praising Jim and others denouncing his behavior. Some contended that Jim was merely protecting himself, while others noted that he ought to have handled the matter differently as a public figure. The aftermath, however, was what truly rocked the industry. Jim was surrounded and taken into a private holding facility by airport police shortly after the altercation. Authorities were obviously not taking this lightly. The true surprise then came. There were rumors that the man Jim had fought was going to file charges. According to a leaked airport report, the victim was alleging assault and public endangerment, which may have major legal repercussions for Jim. The rumors began to circulate. Would Jim lose his job as a result of this altercation? The possible repercussions were immediately discussed by industry insiders. According to certain reports, well-known companies and business associates were re-evaluating their affiliation with him. As executives started considering whether this controversy was too significant to overlook, some conjectured that Jim's standing in the music business might be in jeopardy. Jim hadn't yet come to terms with the situation's truth. He had no idea how much worse things were about to get as he waited in the airport holding area, his mind racing. The entire hip-hop world would be rocked by what transpired after the battle. Jim Jones's mind was racing with a million ideas as he sat in the holding area of the airport. It had been an argument one moment, and then fists were flying the next. The fight had erupted so quickly. He was now waiting for police enforcement to take action in a chilly, windowless room. He was unable to check his phone, which was buzzing constantly in his pocket. His possessions had been seized by security, and he was left to sit there mentally reliving every scenario. Online, mayhem had broken out outside that tiny chamber. The story had already been picked up by major news outlets, and social media was blazing with emotions. Headlines such as rapper Jim Jones involved in violent airport altercation were widely shared on entertainment blogs, prompting hundreds of individuals to express their thoughts. Jim Jones really risked everything at the airport. Man's too old for this, one of the most popular tweets said. Another admirer wrote, Jim might be facing a serious lawsuit if this dude presses charges. Career might not recover from this one. What on earth was he thinking? The same conversation was taking place on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter everywhere he looked. The conflict was no longer the only question. If Jim Jones' career was officially gone, people wanted to know. But the events that followed were what truly made this scenario into a major issue. A fresh perspective on the altercation was leaked just hours after it happened. Jim was already negatively portrayed in the earlier tapes, but this fresh material only served to worsen the situation. This video, which was taken from another side of the terminal, showed Jim delivering the initial blow. This was the picture that the public would remember, regardless of what had been spoken or what had preceded it. After the video appeared on prominent news websites, the story abruptly changed. Jim was being portrayed as the aggressor, not just a rapper caught in a tense moment. The legal threats began to come in at that point. According to reports, the man Jim had battled, whose name was still a mystery at the time, was talking to his solicitors. According to some insiders, he was thinking of filing assault charges, which would expose Jim to a protracted and costly legal struggle. If this man decides to sue, Jim Jones could be in serious trouble. Given the footage and the public nature of the fight, the prosecution would have plenty of evidence to build a case. And let's not forget, the airport is federal property, said one entertainment lawyer, who even went on a podcast to discuss the potential outcomes. This may quickly get out of hand if authorities decide to press charges in addition to a lawsuit. Jim's team realized they needed to move quickly. His legal team, publicist and management were already working to minimize the harm. Desperate measures were being made behind the scenes to seek a settlement before things worsened, including drafting statements and making phone calls. However, things did worsen after that. Brands began to retreat. Jim's prospective business partnership with a high-end streetwear firm was abruptly under review. According to sources, the company wasn't sure if they wanted their name linked to someone involved in a violent public scandal. It didn't end there either. Insiders in the music business began speculating that Jim's future ventures might be in danger. Following this episode, some of his most important business partners had stopped talking and would not say if they would continue to work with him. Some supporters stuck by Jim, claiming that the entire situation was being exaggerated. One commenter said, "Man was defending himself. You'll act like you've never seen a fight before in response to a video. Others, however, weren't so understanding. This ain't 2005. The industry doesn't tolerate this type of drama anymore. One wrong move and your career can disappear overnight, a different tweet stated. Having been in the game long enough, Jim Jones was aware of how rapidly public opinion might shift. He'd witnessed it happen to other artists before, to be at the top 1 minute, and then to be blacklisted the next. Would this altercation be the turning point in his life? Another surprising turn of events occurred as his team frantically attempted to extinguish the fire. More information about the individual Jim battled had been revealed. A recent story claims that the individual had connections to the music industry and wasn't just a regular traveler. Speculation began to circulate that he was a budding music mogul with ties to major labels. If that were the case, Jim's industry relationships might be in jeopardy in addition to being a legal headache. One of his greatest strengths had always been his business ties. Doors might start to close if it were known that he had attacked a powerful person. By the hour, the stakes were rising. Jim was now dealing with more than simply a lawsuit. He was facing more than simply criticism from the general population. His career as a whole was on the line. What's the worst? This was just the start. The city lights flickered past Jim Jones as he sat in the backseat of his blacked-out SUV, staring blackly out the windscreen. The harm was already done, but his crew had finally succeeded in getting him out of the airport without any more problems. After he eventually got his phone back from security, it was a complete mess, with hundreds of missed calls, unread texts, and social media notifications exploding. Even Jim wasn't sure how to spin the tale at this point, but everyone wanted to know what had actually happened. His attorney had made it obvious that he could not remain silent. He had already been portrayed as the aggressor in the leaked video of him landing the first blow, and the public perception would be cemented if he didn't take action quickly. The issue was that he would face legal repercussions for any remarks he made. Jim's own remarks might be used against him if the man he attacked decided to file charges. His heart fell as he browsed through Twitter. By the hour, the headlines were becoming worse. A violent outburst by Jim Jones was captured on camera. Legal action is imminent. Everything had an opinion, and none of them were positive. Industry insiders say Jim Jones' career is hanging by a thread after airport fight. Could this be the end of Jim Jones' legacy? Then Jim saw something even more worrisome. 50 Cent, a well-known figure, was now embroiled in the controversy. When it came to clowning other rappers, 50 had never held back, and Jim Jones was no different. Using a screenshot from the altercation at the airport, he had previously shared a meme on Instagram with the caption, "Damn, Jimmy, you out here catching fades at TSA. Career ain't looking too good, my guy. #shoulder check it that tatatutu." Roasting someone in public when they were already down was classic 50, and it was successful. With millions of views, the post abruptly changed the tone from serious to downright embarrassing. However, it didn't end there. Other rappers began to comment within hours. One thing was certain though, Jim's name was used in every conversation, whether people were making jokes, putting distance between themselves, or even standing up for him. An industry insider, who claimed to have inside information regarding the events leading up to the fight, was featured on a popular hip-hop podcast. Jim was already upset over something else, so I've heard that he wasn't even intended to be on that aircraft. What happened when the guy stated something incorrectly? Another visitor added, "It just snapped off." Rumor has it that the guy he hit is connected to some major figures in the industry, and he could ensure Jim never gets another deal if he so chooses. Now, there was the true dread. Having legal issues was one thing, but being banned in the industry, that was a death sentence, and the clearest indication that Jim could be facing significant difficulties. His business associates had stopped talking. Jim had been negotiating a new deal with a big spirits company prior to the fight, which could have been worth millions of dollars. Now though, no answer, no return calls, nothing. Additionally, a well-known booking agent who had been attempting to get Jim a new tour was not responding. It was obvious that before they agreed to collaborate with him once more, They wanted to observe how this situation developed. Later that evening, however, the worst blow was delivered. A new lawsuit was formally announced just as Jim was attempting to decide what to do next. Finally identified as a budding music executive named Trey Mitchell, the man from the airport was pursuing legal action. His attorneys had recently filed a complaint alleging emotional distress and bodily harm due to violence. The official statement states, "Mr. We are requesting damages for medical costs, pain and suffering, and punitive damages since Mr. Jones' unprovoked attack injured Mitchell." This was precisely what Jim had been afraid about. This predicament was not going away anytime soon because of the litigation. Every significant media organization now had a new perspective to work from. Worse, authorities were now reportedly thinking of filing criminal charges. Jim might have to deal with jail time in addition to a civil case if that were to occur. His team went into full crisis mode right away, in an attempt to resolve the case before it became an even greater media circus. His attorney was already drafting a response. In order to portray Jim as the victim rather than the attacker, his public relations staff began drafting a formal statement. What about behind the scenes? To prevent things from getting worse, his people were contacting everyone they knew. However, there was a single issue. Jim Jones struggled with silence. He was upset about everything, including how the media was misrepresenting the facts, how business insiders were betraying him, and how 50 Cent was making light-hearted jokes. Jim did what he always did when he had something to say, which was to go on Instagram Live, in spite of the recommendations from his team. With his phone in one hand and a drink in the other, Jim relaxed in his poorly lit home studio. "Are you guys really out here behaving like I'm the villain, as if I haven't been playing this game, taking care of my business, or being strong? Let me tell you something, man. You don't even know half of what actually happened at that airport." He shook his head and took a sip. "To begin with, that man was speaking carelessly, treating me disrespectfully as if I should have accepted it. No, you wouldn't have. Don't pretend that you wouldn't have responded in the same manner." He then became quite blunt. "And all these so-called business people are acting strange now. They're pulling back offers and pretending as though they don't know me. Bet." The live stream went viral right away. "Keep up the good work. I don't need you all." According to some, he was standing his ground, so they backed him. Others believed that he had merely made matters worse. This was definitely not the end of it. Jim had no idea what was going to happen next, if he believed the drama was at its height right now. Jim Jones may have believed that his tirade on Instagram Live would make things more obvious, but it had the opposite effect. The video went viral and made headlines on all of the big gossip websites. Jim Jones' emotional rant. Career in freefall. Jim Jones defends airport fight, blames the industry for his fallout. The reaction was swift. Did Jim Jones just ruin his own legal defense? His attorneys were incensed. His lawyer called him as soon as he finished the live stream, his voice tense with annoyance. "What the devil was that, Jim? We want you to appear regretful, not hostile." Jim sneered. "Dude, I had to say something because you saw how they were mentioning me. And now you've supplied them with more ammunition. Do you really understand that you just admitted to the fight?" That part really got to Jim. If they press for criminal charges, that video is Exhibit A. You essentially justified it. He had the money to avoid lawsuits, therefore he wasn't afraid of them. However, jail time? That was another matter. Then things became worse. Trey Mitchell, the man he battled, spoke up. After meticulous preparation by his public relations team, Trey issued a statement. It depicted him as the victim and was cool and collected. "I love Jim's hip-hop legacy, but no one should have to worry about their safety. I never thought a simple argument would turn violent. That was the last straw. I just hope the industry holds everyone to the same standard of accountability." Trey had played it smart, but Jim had retaliated. Jim now appeared to be the careless one, and Trey was winning over the audience. Then the most terrible news arrived. When his lawyer contacted him again, his voice wasn't just irritated, it was serious. "The DA is investigating this, Jim." Jim's stomach dropped. Depending on how hard they go, there's a real chance of jail time if they proceed with criminal charges. You could be facing assault charges. How real are we talking? They have the video and your Instagram live statement. And now that Trey's legal team is pressing, they may try to use you as an example. Jim had genuine terror for the first time since the altercation. Everything would be different if he were imprisoned, even for a brief period of time. His sponsorship agreements, lost. His chances to tour, completed. His standing, destroyed. At that point, reality set in. The industry was already changing. Jim's name was all over hip-hop blogs only a few days ago. But now, the news stories were changing. A brand new rap feud has begun. A famous couple had split up. There was a big record coming out. And now his scandal was dwindling. It wasn't a positive thing though, because it meant that no one was waiting to see if he would get better. They were simply abandoning him. His phone, which had been ringing constantly, now stopped. Friends in the industry who had been helping him, quiet. His own team was beginning to lose hope as well. He received a brief but scathing text from one of his closest business associates who had been managing a significant brand deal. Bro, they're pulling out. We'll chat later. They don't want the negative publicity. Jim threw his phone across the room. Respect in the game had been the foundation of his entire career, on becoming an unavoidable presence. And now? He was now just a poor court decision away from being just another rapper who had failed. There was one last thing he could do: control of damage. Jim's staff prepared a formal statement the following morning, meticulously crafting and practicing its wording. He wasn't going live this time. He wasn't venting his emotions. Rather, they released a video apology. Jim is sitting there looking serious, with no jewelry or gaudy backdrop. I want to talk about everything that has been going on for a moment. I'm sorry for the way things went at the airport. I never meant for things to get physical, and I'm sorry for letting my feelings control me. He inhaled deeply. I would also like to thank Trey Mitchell. We have had discussions behind the scenes, and I hope that we can both go on in a constructive manner. He and Trey hadn't spoken, so of course that was a lie. It didn't matter though. This was something the industry needed to hear. I love this culture, and I know I have to do better. I'm taking this as a lesson, and I hope you all can grow with me. The message was deliberate. Not too aggressive, not too sorry. The ideal amount of balance to get readers to start rethinking the story. And it kinda worked. A few bloggers began altering their headlines. Jim Jones accepts responsibility following airport incident. Is redemption possible after Jim Jones' apology? Others, however, weren't persuaded. Is it too late or too little? Jim Jones' apology, according to some fans, is insufficient. It was damage control, but it wasn't enough to bring him back fully, because his legal matter was his largest issue, not merely public opinion. Jim's lawyer called again, just when he felt things couldn't get much worse. Jim, I need you to sit down for this. The settlement demand that Trey's legal team recently filed for is high, and they are pursuing criminal charges if we don't pay it. Jim's jaw tightened. He was cornered by them. It was an admission of guilt if he paid. He could have to deal with actual time if he didn't. What's the worst? The business was observing, because Jim Jones, the legend, the icon, would be done if he couldn't move over this and repair his reputation. The only question that remained was whether he would make it through this scandal, or did this mark the permanent end of his career? Jim Jones suddenly finds himself at a turning point in his career. Will the pressure compel him to make a settlement and face the repercussions? Or will he fight the court battle and clear his name? The fans are arguing, the industry is watching, and one mistake might spell the end of all he has worked so hard to achieve. However, what are your thoughts? Is Jim Jones being singled out unfairly, or did he cause his own demise? Is this the last part of his legacy, or will he recover stronger? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and enable alerts if you want to be informed of all the developments in this drama as it develops. That way, you won't miss any updates. Because this narrative is far from ended, I assure you.